Hey there, it's Evaristo here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a big book haul because those are the only kind of book hauls we do on this channel. I'm going to try and be as rapid fire as I possibly can be, but let's see where that will get us. I got my Starbright book box subscription, which is a Lumicrate sci-fi box, and in it came the stunning Overgrowth by Mira. This is a beautiful cover with a lovely growthy sprayed edge. At the back it says, "We tried to warn you, you should have listened," and inside we have beautiful end papers that you can see. This is the cover, it's got some gold foiling on it, the side, the back, cover's gonna fall, the more end papers at the back. So having just read the synopsis, because I actually didn't know that much about this book when it came in, Overgrowth is about this young child who is this person called Anastasia, and since she was 3 years old she's been warning everybody that she is an alien in a human body and that the rest of her species is going to come and get her. Nobody has believed her, but then Earth receives an alien spaceship signal that something is coming in, and it is the rest of Anastasia's alien family who have come back to claim her and claim this space, and it may be too late. Anastasia tried to warn them and they did not listen, and it's about what will happen when the aliens arrive. I've been really enjoying my sci-fi this year. I've read a lot of good sci-fi books and I'm looking forward to reading more. I've never read Mira Grant or Shauna Maguire, as she's also known, so this will be my first one of hers. Blackwater Sister by Sancho. This is a book I've already read. I loved it. I give it 5 stars. I went and got myself the US paperback edition because I loved it, and I then caved and bought this. So I was at Chimera Festival up in Edinburgh and Peggy's Pages was there. Peggy's Pages does hand painted edges, and I saw this beautiful edition of Blackwater Sister with these hand painted edges, and it was signed by the author, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get it. My publisher that I work at publishes Blackwater Sister, and I still bought an edition, mostly because of the hand painted edges. I believe this book deserves a special sprayed edge edition that it does not have, so I got my own. Then, so my kryptonite, my biggest kryptonite is the fact that I unhaul a lot of books and I donate a lot of books, and the places where you donate books to, you can often find books to buy. And so I was in work actually, and I dropped off some books at my work free little library, and I saw that somebody else had recently dropped off some books, and that person has very good taste. I don't know who it was, because I ended up picking up 2 books from the work free little library. The first one is Blonde Roots by Bernardine and Evaristo, and I read Girl, Woman, Other and I thought it was okay, and then I read Mr. Loverman and I think it's the best thing ever, and so I need to try a third Bernardine Evaristo to kind of know if I do like her works or if maybe it's just like a 1-by-1 cases thing. Do I know anything about Blonde Roots? No. But I think this line kind of explains it very well. Imagine if the transatlantic slave trade was reversed. Imagine Africans the masters and Europeans the slaves. So that's what Blonde Roots is about. And so that's a very interesting concept. It's giving me noughts and crosses but adult fiction vibes, so I'll let you know what I think of that. And then we have The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignacious Sancho by Paterson Joseph. This was one that was on my TBR wishlist, so when I saw it for free I nabbed it. This was also on the Jalak Prize shortlist. If you're not familiar with the Jalak Prize, it's kind of a diverse book prize, and if you pay attention to Women's Prize, I strongly recommend Jalak Prize is the other one you pay attention to. There's only 3 prizes I pay attention to, and those are 2 of the 3. The other is the Hugo Awards, which are SFF genre fiction. Anyway, The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignacious Sancho. If you don't know, this person, Ignacious, was the first person in the UK who was a black man who was allowed to vote. And this is a fictionalized version of his story. And I don't think many people know, like British people, know the history of Charles Ignacious Sancho. So it's really cool that you've got a fictionalized version about how somebody who was a former slave has come to the point where they're the first black man to be able to vote, who's leading the fight against slavery, who met the king, and whatever else he has done in his life. And there's plenty about him that I don't know, so I'm looking forward to discovering it through this fictionalized account. So then, thank you to Sourcebooks, the publisher, for sending me a big stack of Freida McFadden thrillers. So I've got here, I don't know what all of these are about, but I've got Never Lie by Freida McFadden, One by One, also by Freida McFadden, The Locked Door, guess who it's by, The Inmate by Freida McFadden, and then also The Coworker by Freida McFadden. Can I tell you what any of these are about? No? but I can tell you that her books are incredibly popular thrillers. She comes out with them like she's cooking dinner every single night, and so I am going to dive in and get into my thriller world and into her books. I've read none, and now I own 7 in total, so I really need to get started. Thank you to the same publisher for sending me a copy of Looking for Group by Alexis Hall. So excited to have this. So Alexis Hall is formerly an indie published author, and then they got picked up and traditionally publishes many books since then. But back when they were indie published, I read all of their indie published books except for one, because I found it very hard to get my hands on it, and that is Looking for Group. And now it's being picked up by Source Books and traditionally published, and I'm very excited to be able to read it. This is essentially a romance between 2 men, and they are gamers, so this is perfect for gamers. There's a lot of like gamer speak on it, there's a lot of like chat room speak, and someone who kind of used to be part of that, I really enjoy when I see books about that. So I'm very excited to read this and get into it and get nerdy with it. And I do really love Alexis Hall's writing style, and they've written so many romance books that I've just absolutely adored. So this is very high on my need to read list. Talking about, you know, secondhand shopping, I was at my local bookshop where I donate books to. I'm going to go there later on today actually with a big box, and they had a copy of Inkheart by Cornelia Funke in the original, you know, hardback cover editions. So when I was younger, I was a very big library person. I didn't buy a lot of my books, and that meant that a lot of the books that I grew up reading as a child and really loved, I don't own copies of. And I'm building a home library, and I want to have some books that are some childhood nostalgia books. Not necessarily for me to reread, but for me to like have and to keep and maybe to pass on down the line to family members and such. And for series that I loved, I don't necessarily want to own the whole series. I just want to own the first book as kind of a memento, kind of a nostalgia thing. So Inkheart falls right into that, and I really loved this book when I was younger. It's about this teenager who discovers she has the ability to read books, and then the characters like come out as she reads them, and things can come out of books, and the consequences of that and what happens with that. I loved it. I read the second book, I loved it a bit less. I hated the third book. That is one of the books that I should have DNF'd in life, but back then I didn't DNF, and it took me over a year to read it. My librarian was not happy for me borrowing it for that long. But either which way, I'm glad I finally have a copy of Inkheart. This one will always remain a treasure in my heart. And I also found there a copy of Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. This is in the Penguin Classics library editions of paperbacks that I collect, and I saw it and I got it also because it doesn't count to my TBR challenge. It doesn't go on my TBR. I read Gulliver's Travels a very long time ago, and I remember it being an okay read, but I also remember really loving the film that they showed us in school with Jack Black and Catherine Tate in it. So I've got fond memories of this story. I'm glad to finally have it as part of my collection of the Penguin Classic Library editions. Thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Killer on the Road by Stephen Graham Jones. I've not read anything by this author before, but I've been meaning to read some of his horror books for a very long time. And this is about a hitchhiking teenager who is thrust into a brutal game of cat and mouse when she ends up stalked by a serial killer while she's on the road. So the title is kind of as is what the plot is. It sounds like it's going to be fun. I love a good horror read. Maybe it's going to have some Final Girl vibes. Very much looking forward to finally diving into something by this author. This gift was actually such a surprise and was so sweet. So I hit 9,000 subscribers nearer the time that I'm filming this than the time that you're seeing it, and Victoria, who is a lovely friend from What Victoria Read, that's her channel, she sent me a copy of Role Playing by Cathy Yardley to kind of celebrate that, and I just didn't think anybody would really care other than me, so it was really a nice surprise. Thank you so much, Victoria. Role Playing by Cathy Yardley is a romance that happens between these gamers. It's also more older characters, I think, so I don't know how old they are, but they're older than the average, you know, 20s that you see in romance books. I've read Cathy Yardley before, many years ago, back when I was more of a Kindle reader and an indie published author reader, and I read Level Up by Cathy Yardley, and I absolutely loved it. It's a novella, and I read that in a day. And what these two books have in common is that they're gamers' romances, and she's written many other romances since, but it's really nice to just see it just feels like a nostalgia throwback, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. I know I like Cathy Yardley's writing from many years ago, and I can't wait to give this a go. Thank you, Victoria. The next few books are all from various publishers. So first of all, thank you to Fourth Estate for sending me a copy of Things in Nature Merely Grow by Yiyun Li. This is a non-fiction memoir about Yiyun Li and her dealing with grief and loss. She and her husband have had 2 children, and both of these children are no longer with us, and it's about her experiences with grief and emotions around it, and how that double blow of grief is just really painful, and how she has grown since. And it sounds like it's going to be emotional. I do particularly have an interest in reading books around or dealing with the topic of grief, and non-fiction especially is something that can dig into that a lot. I have read a few pages of this so far, and the writing is absolutely stunning as well. So I think this is going to pack an emotional punch for sure. We also have a very different book here, Dear Reader by Tate James. This is a dark romance. It's a why choose reverse harem romance, and I've recently discovered that a lot of Sarah Simone books that I really like are reverse harem why choose, and so it's a trope that I already know that I really like. And this one is kind of set in a dark academia setting. There's a mystery going on, and then there's going to be like threesome polyamorous romance. So yeah, sounds like something I could like. In my dark romance, so I read dark romance, but I'm very much a play it safe kind of gal. I read Sarah Simone, and I read authors who co-write with Sarah Simone, and I read Katie Robert, and that's about it. That's as deep into dark romance as I tend to go. But it's not because I don't enjoy the genre, it's just because it really needs to be well written. So I'm hoping that'll be the case here, and that's why I tend to stick with familiar authors, but I'm ready to start branching out a bit more again. Then thank you to Bloomsbury Children's for sending me a copy of Ghostlines by Katya Balen. I read 2 Katya Balen books before, and I really loved both of them, so I'm very keen to keep reading her middle grade books. And this is about 2 children who are quite opposite to each other. Everything she likes, he really doesn't like. She likes loud noises, he likes quiet. She likes mess, he likes tidiness, and they just don't seem to bond. So what she decides to do is, for one last ditch effort of making friends, she's going to take Albie, this boy, to her secret island, and it's about what happens when they go there. So it sounds like friendship is at the core of it, which is always something I really love to see in books. Thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Love on Sight by Asli Jensen, and this one is a proof, and this is what the finished copy looks like. And it's about these 2 teenagers who have a romance, but they come from different sides of the coin. One of them is a council house living boy who just wants nothing to do with education. He's kind of done with it. Other person has got her whole life planned out. She wants to go to university. She's really thriving at school, and she is a Jamaican British girl, and he is a Muslim Somali boy, and they have a romance. And it's about, it was pitched to me as like Jamaican rep and also Romeo and Juliet vibes to their romance, because they're from different sides of the coin, but they're making their intercultural, interfaith relationship work. And so I was like, okay, I'll read it. Okay, I'll read it. I was invited to Canongate's influencer event, and they gave us 10 books each. 10 books. That book bag was packed for each and every single influencer, and they also had more books on the tables to take. So I'm just going to show you my top books that I took away from that event that I'm very excited to read. There was the short story collection called Oddbody by Rose Keating, which is supposed to be strange short stories. I love the cover to this and the colour scheme to the cover, and I just really like short stories. I tend to really enjoy them. The stranger the better, the more sinister the better. So I'm curious to see what kind of stories this is going to give me. And then last but not least from that event, I'm very excited to read Foreign Fruit, A Personal History of the Orange by Katie Go. And Katie Go is an Asian Irish author, and she is charting her family's history, and also specifically looking at her cultural experience as somebody who is Asian Irish, and how she felt as an immigrant growing up in Ireland with that history, but also looking particularly at the story of her dad, who is, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think they moved to Malaysia even though the dad is Chinese. So he's also got that experience of being an immigrant in a different country, and that's kind of imbued into her history. But the way that she looks at her family history and her cultural identity is through traversing the history of an orange and how oranges are depicted all through history. It sounds so unique and so intriguing, and the way that she talked about it at the event just made me so sure that this is the one that I'm most excited to read out of all the books that they gave us. And then last but not least here, I've got a book to show you that Bloomsbury sent, so thank you very much to Bloomsbury, and it is called Don't Forget We're Here, A New Generation Search for Religion by Lamorna Ash. Now, I am a Christian, as you can see from the cross that I wear around my neck, but I'm very interested in kind of religion as a whole and faith as a whole, and particularly I find it interesting to talk about the newer generation and what their takes on history are and what their takes on intersectional faith and culture is. And so this non-fiction book kind of caught my eye because it's research into all of that kind of thing, and it's very niche, but it's my kind of niche. So I'm gonna read it and see what I think of it, and hopefully I'll find it very insightful and interesting. The first one is a book that I picked up from work because they were giving away special editions, so I picked up a copy of Red, White and Royal Blue by Cathy McQuiston, and it is gorgeous with the sprayed edges, a bit of the American flag on the back, and then that's what it looks like on the outside. My favourite thing though are the end papers. Look at that, love the end papers so much, love the artwork on them. These ones are pink, slightly different artwork. Amazing, beautiful, unstoppable. So I have read Cathy McQuiston books before. I have read One Last Stop, which I thought was okay, and then I read I Kissed Shower Wheeler, which I enjoyed. Actually I read those in the other order, and so the last Cathy McQuiston to read is Red, White and Royal Blue, which is their most famous one, and I'm gonna give it a go and see what I think. And I got my Evernight subscription. This is Illumicrate's horror box, and the book was The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. I like this redone cover. I love the wooden like sprayed edge. I think that's gorgeous, but the most favourite thing about this edition, sprayed edge is close, but my favourite thing is the naked hardback and what they've done with that. The staircase is on the spine and the back has different rooms. Amazing, beautiful, never seen before. And then there's artwork on the end papers as well. Lovely, lovely, and yeah, beautiful, beautiful book. This one is about a staircase that appears in the woods many years ago, and one person goes up it and never returns. And then several years later, these other kids are in the woods, and then the staircase appears once again, and they decide to go up it and see if they can find out what happened to that missing student. That's what this one is about. It's a horror book. I've heard very good things about Chuck Wendig's writing, but I've never read any of it myself, so this will be a first for me. I literally just finished collecting this series in paperback, and now I've got the special edition Illumicrate hardbacks of Get a Life Chloe Brown trilogy. So the Brown Sisters trilogy actually. I got these a couple like weeks after my grandma passed. It was very much a retail therapy buy. I did not need these, however I am very happy to have them. I plan to reread my paperbacks and annotate them, and I really like the sprayed edges. I like that I have my favourite books in hardback because they are only in paperback in standard edition, and these are all signed by the author. I think they're digitally signed, and the author's written like an inscription with each one. I'm not going to go through and read all the inscriptions, but for example, for At Your Age Eve Brown, it says, "We all bring our own kind of light, whether it's a ray of sunshine or a bolt of lightning," and then she signed it. And I really like the inscription for the second book, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, which is like my book. That's my favourite one. And yeah, I love this series so much. I'm so happy to have all of these in a special edition hardback. There's nothing special about them other than the fact that they're hardback and they have sprayed edges and are signed. Thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Somadina by Akwaeke Emezi. This is Akwaeke Emezi's return to the YA genre, and in this one we're following two twins who have magic powers, where one of their powers is used for good and the other power is considered a curse, so that twin is not very popular. And when one of the twins go missing, the one who has the good power, the other must do everything in their power to find them, because they are worried that they'll be blamed for this, as well as the fact that they want to find their twin, obviously. So there's going to be some magic in this. There's going to be Akwaeke Emezi's signature amazing writing, and Akwaeke Emezi kills it in every which genre they writes. So I'm very much looking forward to reading more Akwaeke Emezi books. I've read many. Then I had a friend, Emily, from A Short Book Lover, who was unhauling books, and I picked up from her Unhaul horror movie by Paul Tremblay. I've not read any Paul Tremblay before. I know that this is a horror book and it has to do with film. So it's about a film called Horror Movie, and when it comes out, everybody who is in part of this film dies except for one person. Decades later, they're making a Hollywood reboot, as they do all the time, and they've invited the one surviving member back. But of course, there must have been something haunted about this first recording, and let's see what happens. So thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Sounds Like Love by Asli Poston. And she writes like romance books with a hinge of something magical about them. So it's about this woman who really just wants to make music and be the next big singer, but when her family's music venue closes down, it feels like everything that's leading her towards that path has been cut off. But she has this half-forgotten melody in her head that she can't seem to shake, and she thinks it could be the next big thing. And then she meets the man who is the creator behind this melody that's in her head, and she can't help but loathe him for it. And she has to admit that maybe she does have a telepathic connection with this man. Now, if you read fanfic, you know that the like telepathic connection romance trope is a whole tag on AO3. So I am excited to see it manifest in a published book in a romance. So let's see what I think of this one. I've read all of Asli Poston's young adult, but I need to dip into her adult fiction works. Okay, so a big thank you to the publisher for sending me all of the Paladin books by T. Kingfisher. So we have here Paladin's Strength, we have Paladin's Hope, we have Paladin's Grace, and then we also have Paladin's Faith. All of these covers are deliciously beautiful, but the most important thing about them is that they are written by T. Kingfisher. I have read to this day 3 T. Kingfisher books. I'm currently reading my 4th, and I've really enjoyed them all, and so I just think that T. Kingfisher is going to be one of those authors where I can read loads and loads from her and enjoy it. And the good thing is she writes loads and loads and loads, so I've got plenty to keep me busy. All of these are kind of a quartet, they look really nice together, but they are individual romance books. But I think they might be interconnected in some way, but that might not be true. Double check my words I'm saying. Then we have Ascension by S.T. Gibson. This is another S.T. Gibson book. I just don't want to be looked at when I talk about S.T. Gibson books. Thank you so much to the publisher for sending it to me. I haven't read any S.T. Gibson yet. But here's another one. Thank you to the publisher also for sending me a finished copy of Overspill by Charlotte Paradise. This is a book that never diagnoses the main character with vaginismus, but that's kind of what she has, and she's gone through a very traumatic experience in the past in terms of physical intimacy, and it's about her when she's older, when she's trying to move on to the next stage with her boyfriend and the struggles that she has with that, as well as how she's feeling about the relationship in general. I've heard it's a very emotional and moving and touching story, and so I'm really looking forward to read it because a lot of reviewers whose thoughts and opinions I really trust really appreciated this book. We have a lot of publisher mail here. Again, thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Audra and Bash Are Just Friends by Tia Williams. Tia Williams is known for being an adult romance literary fiction writer, but this is her young adult romance, and it's about Audra and Bash. So Audra is writing a self-help book, and she needs to test it and check that everything that she's advising people to do is actually helpful. And so that enter in Bash, who is going to be doing the testing of this list and checking that it's approvable worthy, and they are supposed to stay just friends throughout this whole ordeal, but maybe there's some feelings creeping in that they don't expect. I love a young adult contemporary, I love reading black authors, and so hand in hand this seems like a book that is made for me. We have Like a Love Story by Abdi Mazmian. Thank you so much to the publisher for sending it to me. This is a young adult contemporary that has done its rounds in America and has been very popular over there, and now it is finally being published here in the UK. And it's a historical fiction that's set during the AIDS crisis, and you're following 3 different teenagers who are all interacting with the AIDS crisis in different ways and kind of how that sets them on their journey. One of them is a young boy who is gay, but all he knows about the AIDS crisis is that gay people can get it and that his uncle has passed away from it. So he's very like nervous and scared and afraid of coming out. We've got another teenage boy and we've got a teenage girl, and they're all interacting with it in different ways. And so I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what this gives me. I've heard it's also another very emotionally moving read. So while I was on the road with Grady, I went to Cardiff, and I have a colleague who's from Cardiff who's also a friend, and she recommended me an amazing secondhand bookshop called Troutmark Books. It's huge, and so I raided their play section. I have here Medea and other plays. This includes Electra, and it also includes Hecate and Heracles, and I just enjoyed reading the Oedipus plays, and I think there are some more Greek classical plays that I will be able to enjoy, and so I'm going to look forward to trying Medea and the rest of them. It's also fun going into retellings when I've read the originals, so I'm looking forward to that too. And then last but not least, I got Arcadia by Tom Stoppard. I don't know anything about this play either, but I have read Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Still Dead by Tom Stoppard, obviously, because it's about Hamlet. So I decided to pick up another play of his. I really liked his style and I want to see what else he can bring to the playwriting table. This is another book from Emily's Unhaul, so a short book lover, and that is Enter the Body by Joe McCullough, and I'm very excited about this because this was another one that was on my wish list. This is from the novel and versist who wrote Blood, Water, Paint, or Blood, Paint, Water, those three words in some kind of order, and that is a novel and verse about Artemisia, artist who I really love that novel and verse. And then this, her next novel and verse, and it's following women in Shakespeare who die, who don't get many words, and you're getting to see their stories told from their perspective. I love a novel and verse. I love something Shakespearean. Put them together, I appear. I get summoned, and so I've been summoned to read this book in particular. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Emily, for passing it along to me. I cannot wait to read this. I was sent from the publisher a copy of The Lady of the Lake, which is the latest fantasy book from our Queen of Booktube, Jean Menzies, and I'm very excited to read it. I've read books from her before. I mostly read her non-fiction. I'm not sure if she's got fiction published before this one. So I've read her non-fiction all about Greek mythology and also mythology generally, and so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what she can do with a fantasy book. And of course it's a retelling of the Lady of the Lake story, which is an Arthurian legend. Then we have The House of Blight by Maxime M. Martineau. Now this is like fantasy, like a dystopian fantasy book. So we're following someone who has the power to heal sickness and heal injury within them. However, that comes at the cost of a sliver of their own life every time they use it, and they keep this talent very secret, very close to their chest until the Fern Glove family find out about it. They are a family of much wealth and esteem in this world, and they want to use this gift, whether for good or bad we don't know, and the consequences of it we will find out when we read the book as well. So that sounded very promising to me. I like the sound of kind of gritty fantasy lately, and this seems like it will give me a bit of that. Thank you to the publisher, Dialogue Books, for sending me a range of romance books. So we have here Learn Your Lesson by Candy Stainer. We also have Meet Your Match by the same author, Candy Stainer. And then we have here The Next Best Fling by Gabrielle Gomez. Now, I wasn't sure about these when they were sent to me, but then I read things about them, I looked up what they were about, and I was convinced. This one convinced me because it's set around a wedding where she has feelings for the groom and he has feelings for the bride, and they both convince each other not to explain those feelings, and I think they end up falling for each other. I love a good wedding shenanigan book, and it sounds like this is going to give that to me, so I decided I'm going to keep my eye on this one. Then I decided to keep Learn Your Lesson because it's about somebody who falls for a hockey player. I'm not really a big hockey romance person, but the reason this convinced me is because he only cares about two things: hockey and looking after his daughter, and I'm here for a single dad romance. Like I always am. I love when kids are included in books. I know that's a turn off to some people, but I eat that up for breakfast. So that made me want to read this one, and then I decided to keep this one because it's set in the same world as Learn Your Lesson. So that's my simple one-track minded reasons of why I've decided to give these romance books a try. Coming down to the last few books here, so we have Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. This was really popular over in the US when it came out, but this one is following these two friends who from opposite sides of society, but they grew up in the same orphanage, and they are best friends, but now they are both gunning for the same position in the Dragon Riders Society, and so they become rivals through that. But at the same time, the old regime has come back to threaten the new regime, so there's a civil war brewing, and it's about whether their friendship will be able to survive all of the pressures it is being forced through. It's the first one in a fantasy series. I have been hit or miss with the dragon books that have been going around, but I'm going to give this one a fair shot. I was sent a finished copy of All the Hidden Monsters by Amy Jordan, and then also a copy of the sequel, All the Lost Things, also by Amy Jordan. This is like a young adult detective, like an urban fantasy crime series where there's a warlord who's paired with somebody to solve these crimes. Sounds like a really fun way of putting a story together, and also I really like the urban fantasy genre. I hope it's making a comeback, and so I'm looking forward to trying both of these books. Thank you so much to the publisher for sending them my way. Thank you to Faber for sending me a copy of Owning It, Our Disabled Childhoods in Our Words, edited by Jen Campbell, and this is a collection of essays written by various disabled authors on their experiences going through childhood as a disabled person. It has their highs, it has their lows, it has their moments of joy and their moments of tears, and I'm so happy to learn from the disabled community. There's so much we can learn from reading their stories. There's so much representation that is beautiful to see when you see it on the page like this, when you see it in films and media. So I'm very supportive of it, and I really liked Visibility by Alice Wong, which is kind of an adult version of a similar concept to this, and so I'm looking forward to reading the young adult, the young teen friendly option as well. And there you have it. Those are all the books that I've recently hauled in. Please let me know in the comment section down below, have you read any of these? Are you excited for any of these? Or otherwise, let me know which book you have recently bought, received, borrowed or acquired. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!